You know what it is, Cat in the Hat, Resident Flag Guy, Chief Architect Michelangelo, StarArchitects.com. So one of the things that I am actually working and kind of sussing out is the power of consistency. Now, the reason why I've been having this conversation with myself is because over the last really 5 to 7 years, I found that I've been inconsistent in a lot of things that I was doing. And there was a consequence, and I've also seen and found power in life and style when it comes to our own consistency. And some of the pitfalls that happened with me being inconsistent were very life altering, and it created a disorder for my life and how I wanted to show up. And one of the first things, if you've been rocking with me for a little while, you know we're always going to talk about your consciousness and address your consciousness, your collection or your clothing, and then ultimately what that communicates or says about you. So when it came to the pitfalls that I ran into, one of the first pitfalls that I ran into in being inconsistent was that it put me out of alignment. It took me away from the lane that I actually wanted to be in. So, just quick story, when I first began to really start figuring out what my purpose was, how to get into this space, I got scared. And I got scared because I was like, oh, I'm not gonna have a lot of money. There's no way that I am going to have a major impact here. And this was early 2000s, and so people were telling me that's not something I would really, spend a lot of time on. And it was me helping develop men, even 7 to 8 years ago. I wanted to teach fellas about their personal style. I wanted to teach fellas how to show up as the best version of themselves, even then. And people were like, there's no way for you to really teach that. You can probably do styling or something, but that's not really your lane. And you should do something that's going to pay the bills because, rent ain't free, love ain't free. Like, you gotta figure out how to pay the bills. And so I decided I was gonna go into property management. Now, I was living in New York at the time, and this was a prime opportunity for me to really start cultivating my awareness of personal presentation, of style, of menswear, and to go work in a men's space. And the interesting thing that will happen when you are being inconsistent is that a lot of other people sound correct when they don't know what they're talking about. Because at the time, guys were saying, man, I wouldn't go work, retail, I wouldn't go work in fashion, there's no money in there. And then when I left New York, I found out that there were guys making six, sometimes seven figures at these retail spaces. And if they weren't making that, they were still making really good money doing something that they loved. And so the inconsistency then followed me down to Atlanta, where I then, instead of working at a retail space, really building my book of business, really building the level of impact that I could have on a one on one basis, I decided to go work for a company that was doing basically inbound customer service because it was easy. I knew I'd get the job, and because of that, the second thing that happens when you're inconsistent comes was that I became complacent. So I was just like, oh man, I'm getting a paycheck. It's easy work. I don't really have to do anything. But I wasn't growing. I wasn't developing. I was a cog in this wheel, of jobs, right? And so I never felt fulfilled. I never felt excited about work. I never felt genuine. And it wasn't until I started thinking about doing YouTube that I started to get into my bag. And so when I was there, I was like, I'm just gonna be consistent. And for a time, I was putting up 7 videos, almost doing a video every day. And I had all these ideas and all these perspectives and all these things that I wanted to talk about, only to find out that I wasn't really getting any traction. And instead of me saying, all right, let me figure out how to maneuver this, let me figure out how to properly properly position and present myself so that it's more appealing, I just started saying this isn't working. How many of you guys have said this isn't working, right? We're all guilty of doing that. And so I said that this isn't working, I had other people in my ear saying, "Man, you need to be on the streets. People need to know who you are. People need to interact with you. People need to engage with Michelangelo." And that was never really my thing. That was never really who I was. And I was afraid to address them and tell them this is the direction that I'm going, this is the way that I'm going to be, and this is the way that I'm going to show up. And so because of that, I stepped out. I was interacting with people that didn't really have any business interacting with people. And the third thing happened. I found myself off course. So not only was I out of my lane, I was going the wrong direction. Now I was off course, right? And so because I'm off course, if you ever driven off course, fell off the median, right, and you're trying to get back on the road, it's an uphill battle. You feel like you're fatigued. You feel like you're exerting all of this other energy, and in that process of being off course, I damaged relationships. I found myself in a space where my reputation took a hit because of how I was operating from a business standpoint, because I was partnering with people I had no business partnering with in the first place. I was interacting with people in a way that I didn't have any business dealing with, in that space. And so I was off course. And it wasn't really until about a year and a half ago that I was able just to start veering back onto my road, back onto my lane, uphill, right, and getting back into the space that I need to be in. And the last thing that's kind of an unexpected consequence is I found myself in a place where I was often frustrated. I was often hearing these small voices of like, man, I don't know how I'm gonna get back. You don't know how you're gonna get back into this space. And so the same thing will often happen when it comes to our personal style, because I've seen a lot of guys who by nature are much more conservative, or by nature are much more eccentric and eclectic and enjoy having fun and interacting with the world uh, in a very extra type of way. And it's not them being extra, that's just their personality. They're just over the top. They're always going to be fun. And they hear people tell them, you need to mute yourself. You need to put yourself down. You need to suppress, all of that excitement. Instead of figuring out spaces, places, and the presentation that is going to properly represent who they are and how they want to show up, right? If you're able to do that, then you follow that old adage. Maybe it's not so old. Go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. And that's when you start finding your tribe. That's when you start really finding the gifts that you have, and the potential that you really have to put out there is going to be engaged, it's going to be interacted with. And that's when you can actually really start to see your style flourish. So, for instance, when I used to go out and we would go out to a club, and me and my homies would go out like this at all clubs, right? You would go to a hood club, and if I'm like this, that's cool. Nobody ever really pressed me or was trying to insult me. But oftentimes we would walk up to a chick, we would try to start dancing. We all up on. You remember when you get up on the chick, you just start dancing? Like they would look back at us like, what what's he doing here? Because I wasn't in a t-shirt, I wasn't in jeans. We were dressed and sweaty. We were still okay with getting sweaty. That we found ourselves in these positions where even though we weren't necessarily out of pocket, we were still out of place. And I remember a young lady, when we were dancing, she stopped me and was like, yo, like, nah, we can't dance. And I was like, what's up, baby? Like, what you mean? And she was like, you're dressed way too nice to be in here sweating and dancing on me. Like, what are you gonna do if your jacket gets dirty? I was like, I'll take it to the dry cleaners. It ain't, this is an easy fix. But because I was not out of pocket, but I was out of place, it looked incongruent, right? And I couldn't really be appreciated there. But when we went to another space that was a little bit more of an elevated experience, where people were dressed up, it might be a little hand dancing, going on at the time, I was celebrated there. I was appreciated there. Me and my crew were able to interact with ladies. We were able to socialize. Dude would walk up, be like, damn, fam, like, I see you. That look really good. Like, where you get that from? We can start a conversation. And the same is true for certain guys that I know that I've worked with who are just the quote unquote nerds. They enjoy going to things that are going to be intellectually stimulating. They enjoy going to interactions that are going to create a conversation on a much deeper level. And so, oh, see, I was letting my pocket. Appreciate you, Master. Yep. So they enjoy being in these spaces that are going to allow them to properly interact with those around them. And so I had one guy who was a client who was going to Comic Con, and he was like, "Man, I'm gonna go." Like, and I was like, "Is this what you enjoy doing?" He was like, "I really love Comic Con, but like, I don't think anybody's gonna check for me." And this was like years ago. This was probably almost 10 years ago. So he was like, man, problem is I can't meet no girls there. Like it's not really cool people there. And I was like I don't know anything about Comic Con, but like if you enjoy it, you should go do what you enjoy first, right? You should wear what you enjoy first. And interesting thing happened for the first 2 years. It's kind of the same dynamic. Some people who were nerdy, considered nerdy or geeky or whatever, were showing up. And then somewhere around 2013 to 2015, it got popping, and all types of eccentric people were showing up. And I remember driving down the street because there was a Dragon Con or Comic Con um, experience here. There were like all types of beautiful women in the line. There was all types of like buff dudes in the line, like all these cool people that you never would have thought were into anime or into comics or graphic novels that were showing up. And I had some other people who are into art. I've had some other people who are into music and comedy and all these things. And they start finding that they are being celebrated in the places that they are in. And this will allow you to start to align the lane that you actually need to be. Or what I often say is the script. You want to stick to your script. Every man is going to tell a story. That story soon is going to become history or his story. And so, in order to tell your story, you have to stick to your script. You have to address the elements of who you are, what you are seeking to represent, so that you can show up in a consistent manner. Now, why is it important to be consistent in style? And before I answer that question, another thing that I want you to remember is, and I don't mean to hurt your feelings, but you ain't famous. You ain't Instagram famous, not yet. You're not a celebrity. You're not a socialite. Maybe a socialite. But in any one of those cases, nobody's going to care if you wear the same thing twice. Nobody's going to care if you are showing up in a similar look. As a matter of fact, they're actually going to probably appreciate it. So when I see guys who feel like they have to go buy 80 different clothes, now you see what's behind me and you probably think that I have a lot of clothes. I don't in reality, in comparison to a lot of my friends who have closets, like two or three closets full of clothing, right? And it was because very early on I started to realize that having so much clothing actually becomes a burden on you. It becomes something that's going to weigh you down because you don't have clear, concise choices that you can begin to make. And so it creates inconsistency, it creates incongruency because you're trying to do all these different types of things. But if you've been following me on my Instagram, you can go to @StyleArchitects on IG and you look at some of my pictures or my videos, I'm wearing the same stuff. This is one of my favorite blazers. I return to it over and over and over again. I wear it in the summertime, I wear it in the wintertime, I wear it in the spring, I wear it in the fall. And it always gets compliments, it always gets worked. It always gets work because it is not only something that will compliment me, but it complements my personality. It complements the consistency that I can utilize when I need to show up. This is why it's so important for you as men to find out who you are and what you want to represent, what you want to express to the world. And that is why you want to be consistent when it comes to your closet. Because you're not a celebrity. Nobody's going to really care. When you're in the dressing room and you're going over your lines, you're fitting, your different looks, and you're trying to figure out the best way to express yourself, nobody's checking to see how many times you wore something. And here's the great thing: once you get on the stage, once it's really time for you to show up and present yourself with all the gifts that you have, the only people who are really going to care about you wearing the same classic, tasteful, elevated, elegant piece are the people who are haters, who are really following you so in depthly that they are trying to find something to nitpick with you on. And you'll find that what will actually end up happening is people will come to your defense because be like, yo, he always on point. He don't mess with anybody. He just shows up and kills the game. Why are you worried about him? Why are you on his case? What does that say about you? Right? And so your haters will become your congratulators ultimately. And the consistency also will help you in your closet because what will ultimately end up happening is you start to figure out which things you can build upon, which things that will actually help you enhance your theme, will help you enhance your thesis and what it is that you're seeking to truly express. Consider this. If I just told you this blazer, and you've seen it in some of my other videos when I talked about how to wear a blazer multiple ways, you have something that I can dress up, I can dress down, I can wear for work, I can wear when I'm socializing, I can wear out on a date, I can wear for beers and just hanging out with my homeboys. There's so much diversity in this one piece that when I move to the next piece, there is a congruency that's going to match with the consistency. And the more that I can do this, the more I'm going to communicate that this is something that you can depend on. This is something that's solid. And that's all integrity really is. And you want to have integrity with your life as well as your style. So if I tell you this is what I'm about, listen, I'm not a dude who's trying to turn up and be out in the mix and all these other different types of things. And you see me out at a space, 7:30, 8. If you see me out in Atlanta, you're probably gonna see me from 7:30 to about 9:30 max. And then I'm deucing it because I'm ready to go home. And I don't have anybody to impress. I don't need to stay out late. I don't need to be in the mix right there. That's just not my thing. And I don't judge anybody who's like, yo, I'm just getting started at 10:30. It's time to get popping, right? That's you. And I'm not a person who needs to be in the mix and at the party and at that space. That's just not my thing. And so it would look incongruent, it would look inconsistent if I'm showing up late night at a party, and I'm gonna show you why. You get there, or I get there, and everybody else is having a ball. They popping bottles, drinking, they feeling good, and I'm up in the corner like this. So me and you are homies, and we're stepping out into that space. I'm going to deplete your fun. I'm going to rain on your parade potentially because of my incongruency, because of my inconsistency. Far better for us to go get drinks, for me to pregame with you while you doing whatever you doing, and then for you to get up with the other homies, or it's a group of homies, and for me to be a leader and to know myself enough to say, y'all, I'm out. Fellas, y'all have a good time. Y'all holler at y'all in the morning to make sure everybody else got home safe and everybody else is good, right? But the consistency there is like, listen, we don't gotta ask Mike after the third time, do you want to go out? You want to hang out late? Because we know who he is and he knows who he is. So we don't test that anymore. Because dress assured, people are going to test to see if you are true to who you are claiming that you are, who you're communicating yourself. And the minute that you step out of that inconsistency, it doesn't end friendships, there's nothing that traumatic, but it does diminish how you're going to be perceived and how you're going to be engaged with on a long term, from a long term interaction. And that's because people are seeking, especially in this modern day world, something that's solid, something that they can trust, something that they can take to the bank, and that they know that they can depend on. And if you're showing up like that, if you're showing up as a person who is consistently a gift, who consistently does the very best that they can do at the highest level that they can be at, then trust that other people are going to start seeking out the consistencies that you have in the rest of your life. And as Jim Rohn says, how we do anything is how we do everything. And so I want to make sure that you're not paying the cost of being inconsistent, and that you are showing up as the best version of yourself consistently, so that you are always giving that presentation to the world. So when you step out of a dressing room today, make sure that you are consistent. Make sure that you are showing up as the best version of yourself. Now I'm gonna give you 3 tips that you can utilize in order to do this really quickly. Let's say you don't have a lot of money, right? If you don't have a lot of money, this is the time that you actually want to invest in higher quality items. That doesn't mean that you have to spend a lot of money in order to have high quality items, but you want to make sure that you're very intentional on the things that you're buying. When you're going out and you're buying fast fashion, whether it's at Zara, H&M, or any of these different types of spaces, what you're actually doing is you're actually showing a level of inconsistency, because these places are expecting things to be damaged. They're expecting them to fall apart when you need them the most. So you want to be consistent by saying, listen, if I have to wait, if I have to save up a little bit, I'm going to invest in myself at the best place that I can at the level that I'm at. I'm not telling you to go spend $1,500, $3,000 on a jacket that you'll wear consistently, but that you really don't have the money to afford to buy. I'm telling you to save and maybe spend something on for $500 that will last you and that you can continue to consistently wear until you move to the next level. And here's the secret, right? If you're finding qualitative things, you don't have to worry about name brands, you don't have to worry about labels. You'll be able to find something at the next level that is the same version, just an elevated expression at the next level. So maybe you could only afford Suit Supply initially, but now you can afford Isaiah or Brioni or a custom piece. Well, you can find something very similar to what it is that you have, and there's consistency and congruency in what you're doing. Let's say that you don't have a lot of time, right, in order to show up as the best version of yourself. Well, this is even more of an important reason for you to have a consistent look that you can go to, what we may call a uniform, because this allows you to inform the world about who you are, and this is a formulation of your thoughts and your processes. This is why a lot of successful men will say, I only wear a blue suit, white shirt, blue tie, if they're still wearing a tie, right? And a brown cap toe. That's what they always go to, because they are assured that they're always going to look competent, that they're always going to be stylish, and that they're always going to be able to put it together for almost any given situation, right? So if you don't have a lot of time, this is when you really want to start investing in making sure that you have a consistent look. And let's say you don't really know what you want to say to the world, is the last aspect. Well, if you don't know what you really want to say to the world, this is one of the most important times for you to find your level of consistency. Just like when it comes to your life, the less clear you are, the more you are going to take suggestions. And those suggestions may not have the best interest of who you are and where you want to be. So if you are following the suggestion of somebody else, they may be guiding you down that path that will be much like myself, getting you off track and putting you in a space of inconsistency and congruency and damaging relationships. Right now is the time for you to get clear and to order your steps aright, to make sure that each step is taking you into a direction that you want to find your destination in. And even if it's not the full clear path of where you want to get to, this is the opportunity for you to at least find your North Star, at least find the direction that you want to be in, and to start walking in that way. An interesting thing will happen once you begin to align your life. Your style will begin to bloom and blossom from it. So you'll start seeing that the places and people that I want to be around often are seen and presented like this. And you'll begin to find your own unique expression within that theme and within that thesis for your own story. And if you're willing to do that, then you're going to step out of the dressing room forever transformed, with direction, and with a powerful presentation. So I want you to try this on, see how it fits you, and note that from now on Mondays, I'm gonna be consistent and be showing up on Mondays for live. This will be a great time for you to ask any Q&As, for you to do a style evaluation. If you send me a picture of yourself on IG at Style Architects, I'll be happy to do a style evaluation on Mondays for you, brief style evaluation. And this will also be a time for us to touch base for a concept, and you can tell me if it's something that you would like for me to suss out for a video, or what you think about that as well. So outside of that, be great today. But then again, you already are. You knew that. You knew that. So now all you have to do is show up and show out in style. And remember that dress is nothing more than the expression of a man's state of mind. So you, yes, you should always dress to address. I'll see you next Monday. Peace. And make sure that you stay out and you continue to look out for the next video that's on. And I just posted 2 videos over the last 2 weeks that I think you'll enjoy. All right. So I'll see you next time. Peace.